Hello and welcome to My Mom's Basement, presented by 3Chi and Barstool Sports. I am your host, Robbie Fox. With me is my co-host, Clem. And for the first time ever on a recap episode, not on a preview everything you need to know episode, Jose Youngs, the youngsters going wild.
Jose, Jose,
Jose,
Jose.
Jose. What's up, Jose?
Jesus, I still can't get over the youngsters thing. I saw that on Twitter, and it's just all of a sudden I started getting hashtag youngsters in like my Instagram and Twitter DMs, and I was like, "What is happening right now?" And then all of a sudden I saw your tweet, and I was like, "Oh, you guys have all named yourselves." So
Yeah.
appreciate the love. It still absolutely boggles my mind that people want to hear that this much from me, but I appreciate it nonetheless.
And a teaser for people. This is coming out on Friday. On Monday, you will be hearing from Jose yet again on a Doctor Strange preview episode. We recorded it last night, and it was a trip, just like Doctor Strange is, in a very good way. So it's like going to bend your mind in a few places, but I think like our other preview episodes, it's actually going to help you going into this movie. I think it'll make things a little clearer going in, where it's not going to be like, what the fuck is that? You'll be like, oh no, that's maybe Shumagorath. Ooh,
I certainly hope so. I think because I remember like thinking after it, and I was like, I don't know what this Doctor Strange movie is going to be based on, and I'm kind of in the dark.
Oh yeah.
So like, we're gonna be learning a lot. So for all I know, everything I said could not happen, or all of it could happen, and that's why it's exciting.
That's the beauty of those
Love
episodes, right? And we got new merch out. I'm wearing one of the pieces
Now, I
here.
saw that.
Look at that. Designed by Nathan Hurst, a little Chewbacca, Chewy co-pilot stoolie for you. We got a sweatsuit too, the sweatpants, the joggers, the crew neck, all of it. It's available on the Barstool store. Super comfortable. It's embroidered. Embroidered's nice stuff. You know, we're moving up in the merch world. Never thought Barstool would be able to do stuff like that, but yeah, look at us embroidered and shit. I'm doing it all by hand.
Give me the Chewbacca. Give me your Chewbacca sound now in honor of the new shirts.
Oh God, I can't really do it, but
you have the worst Chewbacca for like the biggest diehard Star Wars fan. You always had the worst one.
See, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. My brother can do a good one. I don't have the gene. I don't have the Chewy gene.
I'll pass it to Jose. He can decline if he wants. I know the youngsters would kill me if I didn't.
After hearing yours, I don't think I could top that, so I'm going to quit while I'm ahead.
Fair enough.
We are here to talk about Moon Knight, so I want to ask Jose right away, what are your general thoughts on the MCU's Moon Knight? What do you think? What are the likes? What are the dislikes here?
I like how they're teasing a lot. Like they're setting up, like every episode, I think, answers the previous episodes. A lot of the stuff that we had from the previous episode are answered in the next one, but also kind of setting it up. So you constantly have to keep coming back because you get answers to 2 questions and all of a sudden you have 5 new questions.
Yeah.
So I think that's the thing. And I think what I'm very happy about is they're going with the Jeff Lemire route. I think like on our preview show, I talked a lot about that psychiatric ward angle that they used in the Jeff Lemire run. So I'm very, very, very pleased with that. The green screens kill me, but it is what it is. But like the actual writing, and I mean, Oscar Isaac is the man.
He's awesome.
He's so good,
especially where it's like, fuck, it's like you don't even realize it's the same person. It's like it truly feels like 2 different characters.
And I don't know whose decision it was, whether it was the directors or Oscar Isaac or the writers, whoever. But like, I never pictured like Steve Grant with a British accent at all. Because like everyone, they were all English. They're all like American to me. So whoever's idea was that, chef's kiss. That was a fantastic.
It's always good when you make a big change like that too, and it gets the like approval of the comic fans too. And I've seen a lot of people that are like, "Yeah, this is pretty cool." Even it seems like maybe they're changing around the Jake Lockley stuff a little bit too, right? Like making him a little more chaotic than he's ever been.
I was gonna bring that up. So I don't like. Obviously, we haven't had an official Jake appearance yet, but there has been like flashes of it, like obviously like when they woke up and all those people were dead or like beat up and
like stabbing someone. That was pretty gnarly.
And then Steve was like, "What did you do?" And then like Mark was like, "What did I do? What did you do?" So like they have no happen. And then like when Harrow is in the office in this most recent one, and he starts to like freak out and he picks up the thing to like stab him with like the pyramid.
And he sounds like he's got a New York accent in that scene, right?
Exactly. So I'm hoping those, and like you see, especially in this episode when you're like seeing like the memories, you see a lot of taxis in the background and stuff like that. So it's like I said, there's subtle hints to a lot of the stuff.
There was like that one memory they both couldn't place too. They were
I
like,
know.
"Where's that from?" It's like, "Oh shit, we
I
got
know.
another out there." I feel like he might be like the season 2 tease. It might be like the
Maybe.
end of it. Now I'm also wondering if the end of season 1 is going to put us on a mind fuck where it's like, did this really happen? Do we know if it's an asylum? Do we know if it's not an asylum? I don't know.
So I have my own theory for how season 1 should end to set up a big baddie. But we can get to that later on because he made an appearance in this episode.
Oh.
Um,
I might know who you're talking about. I did a
yeah.
little research.
I'm sure you
There's
did.
some people that are wind up being villains in the comics that maybe you could bring back. So let's talk about this episode a little bit. One of the things you brought up, the Lemire run, which I found out on the YouTube channel Heavy Spoilers this week that I found interesting. The bingo numbers from last week's episode when they were like calling off the bingo numbers in the asylum. If you add all of them up, they add up to 174, which is apparently like where the Jeff Lemire run starts, which is a very cool little homage to that. And it's one that you really have to dig for. Like, I'm surprised somebody even found that out. But this episode starts with a little watery cave, woman screaming, "This is all your fault." We see the hippo again, winds up being Tallret, I believe that's how you say the name. And then it's Mark, or possibly, as we just alluded to, Jake talking to Harrow, the Dr. Ned Flanders version of Harrow. And he says Mark is doing whatever he can not to look within. He's even bringing up rhinoceroses, and he's like, "It's a hippopotamus." And Mark grabs the object, whatever that was, and he goes crazy. He says he feels like $1 million. Kind of sounded New Yorkish, kind of sounded East Coast. And then the orderlies once again rush over, put him out. We're back with Mark, Steven, and Tallret. Tallret tells them they're dead. This is like, the place where we're going to put your hearts on a scale. We're going to judge you, the scales of justice, see if you could reach the field of reeds. And she makes a cool little reference to the ancestral plane in this too. She's just like, people don't think it's real, but it's beautiful. Every time they're going to do that now, I feel like people are just going to think of like Chadwick Boseman and that amazing Black Panther role in that scene. So it's just like, for me, I was like, damn, that's like almost like a nice homage to him every time they bring that up at this point. And they're on a boat that, interestingly enough, was in Steven's fish tank in episode 1. Crazy. That, and also in episode 1, there's a little girl that approaches him in the museum, and she's like, "Oh, have you been to the field of reeds?" And he's like, "That doesn't even make sense. I'm not dead." It's like, oh, fuck, look at the foreshadowing they're hitting us with there. So some crazy stuff there. Jose, you mentioned the green screen stuff to us last night, like when we were done recording.
Yeah.
And it was never more prevalent to me than like in this episode, right after when I watched it, when they're outside on the boat, there were some of those scenes where I was just like, oh fuck, man, this is like real green screeny and in an over the top way.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad as when Mark and them were like running on like the roofs of like Egypt and like on the cliffs and everything. That was not the best green screen. I think, and I always joke, I'm like, oh, they saved all the budget for this episode or some stuff like that. It was one of those episodes where I just kind of made a joke. Wasn't that bad because at least we were in a mystical realm, so I can accept bad CGI stuff. It's one that's in reality that is. But yeah, I agree with you. I actually enjoyed the over the top CGIs in this because I felt like we were very grounded for like several episodes, and now Moon Knight is finally being pushed over the edge with the audience.
Did you guys get any vibes from that scene with the ship? Because I'll tell you two things. One, we left the door and then we're in this sandy fucking world from that place. A little bit of Beetlejuice sandworm vibe.
Oh yeah.
And then the ship, like one like angle they hit, I kind of saw Jabba's barge out there. And
I could see that. Yeah.
Lord.
That sus motherfucker, Max Rebo is probably behind all this looking back now. That son of a bitch.
Hey man, Disney Plus just can never leave Tatooine, right? There's thousands of planets in the galaxy, and yet we can never leave Tatooine.
Breach, Jose. That is my number one gripe towards Star Wars outside of the sequel and the prequels. That's number 3 on the list.
Oh,
God bless
man.
you.
Give me something else, man. I love it.
How much of this stuff too, this and kind of the ending of last episode, is taken from the Lemire run? I know the Asylum angle is taken from it, but is it like specifically like drawing from that, or just kind of taking things here and there?
I think it's taking things here and there because in the Asylum, in the comic book, there you meet other characters like you meet specific characters from the Moon Knight thing. Like there are certain characters in the comic books that aren't obviously in the comic book. Like Marlene is not in the show. I think she's been replaced by Layla because they're essentially the same character, just different names. Obviously, Marlene in the comic book is like a white Anglo-Saxon, like Anglo-white woman, and in the show they tried to make her like more Egyptian ethnic, which is fine. They're the same character, they fill the same role. Like she is also in the asylum with like Crawley and all these other characters from Moon Knight history. They're also in it, and there is a lot of time jumping, but it's kind of all in his head. And Khonshu is in the asylum talking in his head too, because at this point Khonshu and in the show Khonshu and Mark and everyone have been split because Khonshu's frozen in that like stone statue at the end of season whatever, at the end of the previous episode. So now Khonshu's not in his head.
Yeah.
In the comic book, Khonshu is in Mark's head in the comic. Like he is, when Mark goes to bed, he's like talking to Khonshu, and the way that it's drawn is Khonshu is like a therapist, and Mark is like laying on a couch. So it's like that's funny cool. Too. And the what do you call it? The doctor is not obviously Harrow. Like we said, Harrow is a nothing character that they just took the name. It's like a woman who has like Mark's journal, and Mark
she winds up like actually being Amit in the comic, right?
I believe, I believe
not
so.
Amit, but like she winds up being like
all
crazy
the orderlies and her, like at one point, like at their faces turn to like a crocodile, a rhino, and all that kind of stuff. So it's taking pieces of it, but this one is much more splintered rather than, I think the Lemire run, as weird as it's going to sound, is much more streamlined.
Okay, and another question about the Lemire run. I know at the end of it, they kind of reveal that even though they think it's Amit behind it all or whatever, it's Khonshu behind it all, and he was like with Mark since he was a kid. I feel like there was a little tease of like maybe Khonshu was with them all along in this one when they see the skeleton of the bird on the ground. But do you think at the end of this, they're going to go the route of Khonshu being behind it all, or do you think they're going to be like, you know what, we're changing shit up? Because Khonshu so far seems... from the way you described them, a little more like protagonist in this show.
Well, for years Khonshu was the protagonist. He was kind of the guy that gave him the power, and then the Lemire run is really the one that pushed it over to like Khonshu's kind of manipulating everything behind the scenes. And it's Seth is the one in the comic book that's the big bad guy, Seth. Which is like Khonshu's like brother or something or whatever. It's something strange. and Seth is actually like, I don't know if it's a vision or if it's not actually there, but like when Mark gets into the pyramid in the middle of New York, when he does escape, like Seth is like tied up, and he's like, wait, if you're tied up, then who's the bad guy? And then that's where it like clicks. So it could be, but I also don't think in the comic book Mark necessarily knows what Khonshu's game plan is. It would be interesting if that's the path they took now, this early.
Yeah.
If they do a second season and that's where it is, then I could see that ending at the end of season 2, midway season 2. It would be surprising if that's the route they took in season 1.
So going forward with the episode, they go back into the asylum. They look at the rooms of memories. They have that one they couldn't place. And then they go into a cafeteria full of dead people that Mark realizes, oh, these are all the people that I've killed in my life. Some of them are bad people. You know, I had to do it. I was a mercenary, whatever. They see a young boy walk into the cafeteria. Steven follows him. Mark is trying not to get him not to follow him. And then as he follows in, we kind of go into this memory sequence. We see a mother working the grill. He's like, oh, that's me, mom. We see his brother. We see them go on an adventure together. The mom's like, you make sure, you know, your brother's going to be okay on this. His brother winds up dying in this horrible cave accident. I believe the brother's name is Randall.
We called him Roro, Bob. We called him Roro. He was our friend.
Dies in a cave accident. It floods while he's pretending to be the Stephen Grant character from like Tomb Raider, whatever it was. And the mother blames him, like completely abusively blames him, doesn't celebrate any of his birthdays, says it's all your fault. You were in charge of this, lashes out. And Mark essentially created Stephen, we find out later. They kind of make it a mystery for a little bit. Like, did Stephen create Mark? Did Mark create Stephen? But we wind up finding out that Mark created Stephen to cope with the abuse of his mother. Just pretty dark, pretty intense stuff. Steven lashes out at Mark when he finds this out. He's like, "What was I, y'all stress ball? Come on." He's not the main personality. And we see later teenage Mark walked out on his father years later. So it's like completely splintered the family. This is why the multiple personality disorder begins. And I believe in the comics, his brother winds up being a villain. Is this who you were referring to
Yes.
earlier, Jose? Okay.
Correct. And before I get into that, I think an interesting way to introduce Jake is because obviously when Mark he turns into Steven at like young and he picks up the pencils and he's like putting them away and then she comes in. But so the mom walked in and Mark was Steven, but Steven doesn't remember, which means Steven would have to change into someone else. So I would be very curious if they use Jake as the one that took the beatings, if that makes sense. So Steven doesn't remember because Steven wasn't there. So which is why Jake is the hardened psycho, because he's the one that was physically
he was like truly abused. Yeah.
He was the actual, he was the backup. He wasn't the stress ball. He was the punching bag, if that makes sense.
That's a good way to put it too.
In the beginning of this episode, which shout out to me for putting in my notes, is this third guy who's all cut up, Jake? He's all cut up when you first meet him in this episode.
Way more cut up than Mark was. Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that would be a very fascinating way. That wasn't obviously in the comic books, but I think it would work for this specific Moon Knight. Now, to go back to Randall or Roro, that whole scenario in the cave and everything was not a thing in the comic books, which is fine again. But Randall Spector, which is Mark Spector's obviously younger brother, he's also a mercenary with Mark back in the day. And Randall, I'll try to keep it short, but because Randall Spector is not as big of a deal. He's not the be all end all bad guy. That's still Bushman, which they alluded to in this. They
actually mentioned him for the first time. I think this was the first episode where they actually said his name.
Yeah, throwaway line. It was like so and so Bushman. It was like his last name, and I was like the Leo meme. Yeah. I was like, they said. I'm like, that's the thing. That's the thing. But so Randall Spector is a mercenary, but he turns on Mark because he's like, oh, I can make a lot more money if I'm the guy. Mark survives, and then they fight. And Mark like throws a grenade at him and like dies. And that's like the last we hear of Randall for a bit. This was like a long time ago. Eventually this like serial killer type thing. And then like years pass and Mark is Moon Knight. Like he is fully fledged Moon Knight in the city. He's with Marlene and everything, like established hero. And then the serial killer like shows up and starts killing nurses for some reason. And they show, but it's like he has a hatchet and no shirt. Do you guys know who the Creature is in the Batman lore? Like he was in one episode of Batman Adventures.
Sounds familiar. I saw a picture of who you're referring to earlier because they did a
So he looks, for those of you listening, he kind of looks like a less goofy creature and more of like a psycho. Like he has a white face, long green hair, no shirt, and carries a hatchet, and he's like killing nurses. So Marlene and Mark like decide to lay a trap where she dresses up like a nurse to like lure him out. And then he does, and they fight. And it turns out that Randall Spector survived and is now going after Moon Knight. And this was the plan. And then they fight, but Mark doesn't want to kill his brother. And then they do the hokey thing where like Randall Spector like lunges at him, and then Mark like jumps out of the way and he like stabs himself in the chest on like a tree.
Classic.
And that's how Randall in quotes dies because eventually he comes back. And at this point, a ton of writers, because Doug Mink was really the guy in the early eras of Moon Knight that like established Moon Knight as a great hero. And then he left, and there was just like a cycle of writers constantly canceling, restarting this and that. Eventually he comes back, and he's like and at this point, I believe it was the Blood Brothers saga where it's like Punisher and Moon Knight actually team up, not to hunt Randall, but like it's a team up sort of thing. And Marlene is like in Central Park, whatever, and like the guy in the green and everything like comes back and attacks Marlene. Like, so then they like sort of team up. And then there's this woman named Nephthys, who's like an arms dealer, who's actually was Randall's like lover like years ago. And it turns out that he got hurt too in like the desert, unrelated to Mark. And he actually was in the pyramid that Mark made the deal with Khonshu. Like he saw it all go down and he got
Oh.
jealous and was like, well, I want to be powerful too. But he couldn't. So he tried and he couldn't. So Nephthys and Randall read like this prophecy that someone is destined to replace Mark. And he's like, that's me. So then they retconned the original Randall like nurse killer thing where Nephthys and Randall just found a dude, and brainwashed him to think he's Randall. So the Randall that died is not actually Randall. This is Randall. It's very silly.
God.
It's
We
very
got
silly.
Randalls all over the place.
So the OG nurse killer was actually like, psych, not Randall. I'm the real Randall. Very silly. So eventually Randall makes his own. He basically gets the same powers of Moon Knight, but like gets it through science and magic. So he gets like bulletproof skin, enhanced strength, enhanced stamina, this and that. But when I say like he's not indestructible, he has like Luke Cage's powers, where like his skin is unbreakable, but if you take a baseball bat and like hit him, his arm could still break. The skin just won't break. So Punisher eventually, I remember this Punisher defeats him by like getting the biggest gun and just blowing him away and like pushing him out a window. And then he like his body breaks. And like that's all we hear from Randall Spector for 10 years. For 10 years in the comic book. And then he comes back in Daredevil Shadowland, I think it was. And this was great, but the Moon Knight aspect was the worst part of this.
Oh no.
So Matt Murdock you know who the Hand is? It's like the evil ninja faction. It's like this mystical ninja thing that Elektra was a part of. Matt Murdock is possessed by the beast of the Hand, which is like this like demonic, like fat. Speaking of Jabba the Hutt, looks very much like Jabba the Hutt, actually. It's like ninja Jabba the Hutt, who's like controlling the Hand, possesses Matt Murdock. Matt Murdock takes over Hell's Kitchen, turns it into like his empire called the Shadowland. Eventually, I believe it's Iron Fist, like banishes or like exorcises the beast from Matt Murdock. Matt Murdock kills himself, and then Elektra brings him back to life, as you do. At this point, Randall is like hired by the Hand to kill Moon Knight so then he can replace Moon Knight. Reasons I don't quite remember. And it's like, remember I told you in like the preview that like there was like an era of Moon Knight that was like hyper violent, like too violent. This was like around then where like Randall Spector or Shadow or Moon Shadow or Shadow Knight, whatever his name is, like goes on this like insane killing spree, just like killing people left and right, and is like leaving clues in blood for like Moon Knight, like mocking Moon Knight. And I'm like, this is bananas. He eventually attacks Marlene in like a brutal attack, and like she has a miscarriage. Awful.
No.
Again, awful. Don't need that. And then they do Randall versus Moon Knight, or Moon Knight versus Shadow Knight, whatever it is, in this like insane fight. Like it is like brutal and like ugly and violent, and it's like back and forth, like because they're like the same person. And it turns out that I think Randall's going after like this weapon called like the moon crescent of the moon or something, which is like a mystical moon shaped weapon. I can't remember why he needs it. But then eventually Moon Knight is about to win. And because it's comic books, like Randall like rips his shirt off and he has like a bomb on his chest and he's like, I'll blow us up. I'll do it, or something stupid. And then, but because he has indestructible skin, he'll like survive. So Moon Knight uses his mystical weapon to like kill his brother.
Nice.
And then that's it. That's all we've ever seen of Randall Spector. So that little kid that quote unquote drowned turns out to be like a psychotic killer in the comic books.
That would be a good person to bring in because like in the show, like that's the reason he has the personalities in the first place.
Correct.
Like you could tie that all together.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be pretty fucking good.
I also think it would be very cool because right now we're getting a lot of like mental warfare and like psychotic back and forth stuff with Mark. I would very much like a villain that could like get physical with Moon Knight, because we haven't seen a lot of the actual Moon Knight character in this series so far, which is fine.
Shows up like at the end of like most episodes, hits a couple punches, moonerangs here and there, and then he's gone.
Moonerangs.
Yeah. Let's tell the people about Game Time, the new exclusive ticketing partner for Barstool Sports. Game Time is the new ticketing app that allows you to get last-minute deals on sports. So this is like something that everyone, I feel like, knew about. They would do through other ticketing sites where it's like, if you wait till the last minute, prices will drop. You'll be able to get in for cheap. Game Time has basically perfected the art of doing this. They can score you deals on last-minute tickets throughout shows, concerts, sports, whatever you want to go to. and they guarantee the lowest price as well. So get the Game Time app on your phone, go to the account tab, create a login, redeem the code MMB, and we'll get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, of course, but $20 off your first purchase. I mean, if you're looking to go to an NHL game or something, or a daytime baseball game, depending on where you are, that could be like half off your price there. So download Game Time, last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you to Game Time for sponsoring the show, of course. Maybe when Marvel Live comes back on tour or whatever, you could get your tickets there.
We're gonna go to we'll go to a fight or a game with Jose next time when
Well,
we're all
I'm in.
like the same. You guys are basically like
Jose's a huge Red Sox fan.
Die hard.
Really?
Die hard.
Learning something fucking new about
There's
Jose every day.
There's like in the rankings of Jose, it's like comic books and Red Sox are like 1A, 1B.
Wow.
Like I
Holy
do not
shit.
miss. I do like because like West Coast games start at 4. Great. So I listen as many as I can. Die hard.
There is an opening here for a diehard Red Sox guy. Like
There is, honestly, yeah.
We'll call you the missile.
Right. I don't think. I think the space that I would be taking would be very big shoes to fill in that aspect.
Back to Moon Knight. This was honestly my favorite scene in the episode, and it's the scene where we get to see the night he became the avatar of Khonshu.
Yeah.
He gets to crawl to the, I don't want to say the grave, the temple of Khonshu,
Yeah,
whatever that
something like that.
might have been. And we see like all the dead bodies everywhere. We get the retelling of, Bushman did this. He was the mercenary partner, and he kind of went crazy. Layla's dad was part of the person that was killed. And we see marks like they kind of did it like deal with the devil. And he makes the deal with Khonshu. He physically becomes Moon Knight in the temple. This is a badass scene. Clem, you're the big Khonshu guy. I don't know how you felt about this, but I thought it was pretty fucking sick.
How did I feel about it, Bob? First of all, Jose, you have to admit the Khonshu voice is pretty fucking awesome in this.
Oh,
one.
it's
I don't know
aces.
the word.
Aces.
Yeah. So, my hands, my eyes, my vengeance. There's my first tattoo right there, boys. You guys are all tatted up at the toe. I'm going to have the tattoos of an Egyptian god that I didn't know existed 6 months ago on me because that was fucking metal. In the words of Bob Fox himself, metal.
Jose, did they redo his origin story when they did the Lemire run, or did they assume people knew it?
They alluded to it because a lot of it is so it was explained like I believe it was Mark's like got like brain injuries from that, and like a lot of this was like made up in his head because of like trauma, but a lot of it is like flashbacks and stuff like that.
So then we go back to the psych ward. Steven has a scene with Dr. Harrow, and this is where he says, like, you look a bit like Ned Flanders. Such a funny line. And I liked their little back and forth. He has to, like, accept his mother's death in this moment where he does the phone thing. He's like, Diana, get Steven's mother on the phone, whatever. It's, like, hung up already. He accepts my mother's dead. Very sad. And then, speaking of sad, the gates to the field of Reed are closed. So the dead people start crawling up from the duat, I think they called it, the desert, and they start to attack them. Huge fight sequence on the board of the ship. And Steven winds up throwing himself over, killing himself in the process so that the scales of justice could be balanced, the gates could open, and then Mark goes in at the end. Kind of Infinity War vibes, I saw some people saying, where it's like you get the sad death, and then it's like the person is in, Valhalla looking thing where it's just like kind of not happy, but bittersweet in a way, and the episode's over. Great penultimate cliffhanger where it's like, fuck, Steven was like the guy we started this show with. Steven is one of the favorite characters. My guy, I said to Clem, he was like, out of all the personalities, Steven was my guy, and now he's gone. I assume he'll be back. They got to bring him back.
Yeah, he'll be back.
How can you kill a personality? It's like it's in there somewhere.
I would hope like the Jeff Lemire runs with Mark going through all this stuff, and then he wakes up in Steve Grant's penthouse, and it was like, oh, I guess I had a nightmare. That would be kind of fun. Like that's how the season ends.
That would be wild. I was thinking either that or like could the season end with just like him waking up doing something horrible as Jake Lockley, like, or
just waking up as Jake Lockley in general, or something like that.
Or if he wakes up as Jake Lockley, we see mirrors in the background, and Mark and Steven both look at each other like, Who the fuck
Like-
is that?
because Jake's a cab driver, so like all of a sudden you hear like an alarm and he has to like go do the graveyard shift at like the night. That would be fun.
And then it's like he's adjusting the mirror. That's how you do it. He's adjusting his
Ooh.
mirrors in the cab. And
Bob
then someone's looking at him,
Fox.
and that'd be pretty fucking good, right?
I love it. I love it.
This is gonna come off kind of mean, and I know it's Bob's guy and all. As Mark killing Steven to live in heaven for the rest of your life, that's a trade I think I would make. I'll be honest with you guys.
Yeah. I mean, if your imaginary personality / friend who's like, a vegan and shit, like.
Oh, but I'm so sorry, Mark. Jose, this is coming from a guy who like just had to take his kids to a gift shop and now hates every gift shop on the planet because of
Obviously.
the fights I had to have. So this comes from that's where I'm coming from here. Bob always does the cute little British accent to like make Jose such a lovely, wonderful person. I feel like we might see that sand death again. The way they kind of like zoomed in on Steven's face, I was like, I could see us seeing that somewhere, somehow. I don't know how, but I feel
Harrow,
like,
is that how they kill Harrow?
yeah, I feel like that might be something where Marvel comes back to it there, the way they kind of paused on it. Speaking of guys who died, I want Roro back. I want him back. I don't know how we're going to bring Roro back. And I'll tell you, man, I was fucking curled up into a little ball, like a little bitch. I'm like, wait, what the fuck are we doing here? Jose didn't warn me about like a cute little brother dying. Jose,
I couldn't warn you about something that doesn't happen in the comic books. Either this little boy, either this little Jewish boy dies, or he becomes a psychotic serial killer. Like, pick your poison.
Ooh.
I did see people were pretty excited about the fact that they showed that he is like Jewish in this, because he's very Jewish in the comics, and people were like, that's like a big part of his character.
Yeah, the original Moon Knight, part of his whole gimmick was like it was either his father, his grandfather, whatever, like they escaped the Holocaust or something like that, and he's like, you didn't go back and take vengeance. I'm like, and his dad's like, oh, he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, and that he like doesn't respect his father for that. I'm like, your dad survived the worst thing of history. Like,
Maybe
give him a break.
his ancestors know Magneto's ancestors back in the day.
Hey, maybe. If anything, Magneto's, I think I'll die on this hill. Magneto is the best supervillain in the history of comic books because of his background.
Yep,
it's pretty awesome. But I was thinking about this, and I think we've talked about it on the show before. Like, in 50 years, are they going to change Magneto's background to like another genocide? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is it going to get to the point where the Holocaust is too far away if you want to set comics in modern day, where Magneto either needs to become like invincible or he can't age?
I hope not, but you never know.
It's a weird issue if you want to, like, the way Marvel does it sometimes. Like, we were talking on the Doctor Strange episode that people could look out for. Like, Thor did a thing where he went down to Hurricane Katrina. They've done Spider-Man and 9/11 and stuff.
I got a DM from this guy, Ben Brown. I got to shout him out at the Big Shalom, by the way. Is his hat.
Nice.
And he goes, Jews have been clamoring for a superhero for a long time, and we finally get one just in time for him to be slave to Egyptians. Time is a flash. And he goes, still, it's a start. So shout out to the Jewish people for getting their guy, and we'll see what he does next time.
Yeah, I mean, the X-Men were created solely because like Jack Kirby, like they were the X's and they were ostracized. So that was Jack Kirby's like answer to like Jewish people and like being unrepresented in comic books. There's enough. There's like Quicksilver, Polaris, Doc Samson, Magneto, Sasquatch, Kitty Pryde would wear the Star of David a lot in the X-Men comic book. Scarlet Witch is technically Jewish. Wiccan, Speed, all these guys. There's a lot of Jewish superheroes. Moon Knight just happens to be the one on screen right now.
First one on screen. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Predictions for the finale. What do we got from you guys?
There's so much to cover here. That's like we have Harrow, we have Layla, we have Jake, we have.
I know, worries me a little bit that like it'll fall into the trap of like he'll just get into a big CGI fight with Harrow, and we'll leave stuff on the table. Like I don't want to leave all that unresolved.
How many episodes are left?
Just one.
What? Really?
Just one.
That fucked up.
Wow.
Maybe this is one. All right, there's my prediction. Secret episode. I say that basically every series that we do, we're gonna get kind of like that secret track on an album where you're like, oh shit, it just keeps playing. Secret episode coming.
It better be a long episode. Better be like close to an hour, if not, 60 minutes.
I thought we had at least 2-3 more. That's interesting. If I'm selfishly, I would I would do the cab thing where like
Yeah.
Jake wakes up and gets in the cab and adjusts the mirror, and then someone gets in his cab, or he's an Uber driver because we need to.
Oh, you could do Uber, yeah. Nowadays, if we're
he's modern
updating
day,
things,
and so
yeah.
he goes to pick someone up and he adjusts the camera, and you see Mark or Jake or Mark or Steven in there, and then someone gets in the cab and he's like looking for Randall, and then credits.
Oh, that'd be pretty good. Clem, do you have any predictions yourself? Like, I'm still confused about how the asylum works.
Yeah,
I don't think he's dead.
Yeah.
I think he's dying.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
I think he's probably dying. Yeah.
Khonshu's gonna do.
How's
Khonshu's
Khonshu getting out? Like, is Layla getting Khonshu out?
You don't even have fucking Khonshu out too. God, what am I saying? Oh my god.
I think Mark was worried Layla was like he was like, oh, she's on like a suicide mission or whatever. But like, is she gonna get him out, or is this somehow like all part of the plan where it's like Mark getting shot and him dying will allow him to get Khonshu out from the afterlife or something? I don't know.
I'm gonna say that room full of dead people somehow plays a role in like fixing all this, because that was just so fucking weird, and they were just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is weird," and it was creepy as shit. And then they just kept going. I feel like there's more in the dead cafe. As
Could
I
that
wrote
be a parallel to like the room full of the little statues that we saw for like
Mm.
1 second? We saw like, oh, are there a bunch of gods that are just locked up like this?
So she also said, the hippo said, like, this is a afterlife.
Yep.
I mean, there is this big evil fire lord that lives in hell that we are assuming is going to be introduced at some point too.
The M-Man?
The M-Man.
Oh.
That would be a lot of fun.
Oh,
Man,
you're speaking my language.
I don't know what's going to happen. I really like
Maybe
with one episode left. That's
do
a
they
lot to wrap up.
introduce like, do they do kind of the Blade tease like they did at the end of Eternals? Do they do like that kind of thing? They're both in London, right? They're all in London right now.
I don't know if they would introduce Blade in Moon Knight.
Like the Black Knight.
The Black Knight could for sure. Absolutely. Well, Black Knight has teamed up with Doctor Strange more than Moon Knight. So the Black Knight I would intro via Doctor Strange of some sorts. I mean, the Eternals did mess around a lot in ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
I got one. I got a fresh one for you.
Okay.
So post-credit scene, we got to think like that now if we're doing finales, right? Post-credit scene, gonna go. And again, you said Eternals. It's not gonna be Jon Snow. Fuck it, Blade. Give us another like Blade reveal or something like that.
Blade would be sick. I think Gore the God Butcher would be sick in a series dealing with a bunch of gods. Like, what if Gore just comes in and fucking kills one of them?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Kills the hippo.
Yeah, even better.
In cold blood.
There was
slices her head off.
Someone had posted an Easter egg where there's hippo dolls in the first episode.
In the first episode,
yeah.
She's like, hey, can you move the dolls? Donna says it to him, and he has to move them. It's crazy how much is packed into even just that one scene I think it was last week, where they just pan through everything. It's like there's honestly an Easter egg in every frame of that shot, from the fish to the Crowley to the bosses. It's very, very well thought about. But I was talking to Ken Jack about this today too. He said, where would you rank it among the Marvel shows? And I was like, I really don't know. Like, it's hard to rank with the Marvel shows because it doesn't feel as much like a Marvel show.
No.
It feels so standalone-ish.
I saw someone on Twitter was like, the Moon Knight doesn't work for the MCU. And I was like, I think it's the other way around. I don't think the MCU works for Moon Knight.
Doesn't work for Moon Knight.
Yeah, I think because like this specific one is just a little bananas. I would assume season 6 is just. I mean, episode 6 is just Mark coming back and fighting Harrow. I think.
Yeah,
that might be
the
big
way
thing.
They usually.
Because it's. I feel like you tune like we all agree there has been a severe lack of like Moon Knight, the superhero.
Oh yeah,
like it's been a lot of like. So I feel like they're gonna have to give us some epic fight rather than like a couple minutes here and there.
I didn't even think like me and Robbie are just like, man, this kind of sucks. We're not seeing as much Moon Knight. We don't like even know Moon Knight basically to not be like I can't even be upset because I don't even know who he is. Jose's probably watching these shows like, put the fucking Moon Knight on the television. The name of the episode, like it should season, like Moon Knight's other persona should be the name of this series so far. It's
You know, it was another idea I had for the show where I was like, they should have done that. It would have been just a cool way to set it apart. This episode is called Asylum. That's the title of the episode. And I was like, that's kind of dope. They should have done like Batman the Animated Series style title cards for every episode. Like if we saw at the beginning like Moon Knight, Asylum, it would have just hyped me up more for the episode. It would have been like, oh shit, what do we get into this week? Maybe even with those, like there's that awesome picture from the Jeff Lemire run, which I didn't even read, but the picture of him where he put blankets over his head,
the pillowcases,
he makes his own. Yeah, he makes his own.
And he
Moon
draws
Knight
the thing on his head. Yeah,
it's such a cool style that like you could have done pictures of Oscar Isaac, have that artist kind of draw Mark Spector in that Oscar Isaac style. Would have been cool. But when it comes to ranking it, like I hate to say it, I'd probably put Moon Knight towards the bottom. And I don't dislike the show. Like I've been captivated every week, but it would be with like along with Falcon and Winter Soldier with me, and another show that I liked, but it's not like, I mean, Loki, WandaVision, even Hawkeye, I was like really, really into. I'm not that way with Moon Knight. Moon Knight, I'm like, I'll get around to it.
What's your guys' favorite?
Loki was my fave.
Yeah,
I think Loki and Loki won WandaVision 2 just because WandaVision was a little slow to start. And I feel like Falcon and the Winter Soldier is like, instead of like the ceiling, it's like the floor where it's like, all right, you guys are down in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier area.
Like because I'm not as in tune to the cinematic universe, but like in the comic book world, I saw nothing about Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like there was no shattering at all.
Yeah.
Like WandaVision. That's
how it feels to Moon Knight about
a
this
little
show right now.
I'll say so. WandaVision like shut down everything. Like that was to a lot of people in the scene. That's the show. And Loki was great too. I'm seeing a lot of non-comic book fans talking about Moon Knight for whatever reason.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're very confused.
Well, I could see non-comic book fans liking this because there is so little superhero stuff in it.
I also think Oscar Isaac is just like such a beloved like actor that people will tune in for him. Like
Definitely.
Are there Elizabeth Olsen fans? Like I'm not saying that to be like
there's
rude.
Probably some stands on Twitter. Yeah, that would be like.
But like I feel like Oscar.
Of course there are.
Like Oscar Isaac is like Oscar. This is also like Oscar Isaac wasn't he technically Apocalypse in like the X-Men?
Yeah.
Movies,
he's Apocalypse, and he's Spider-Man 2099 in the animated universe. He's going to play that in. He was
playing
in the
Miguel O'Hare
scene of Into the Spider-Verse, which I saw they just played at CinemaCon. They just played the first 15 minutes of Across the Spider-Verse. So that movie has to be. I know they just delayed it, but it has to be like pretty far along if they're showing that much of it.
Yeah, I would imagine so. That's going to be such a good movie.
There's a lot from they announced that they're doing Across the Spider-Verse, and then the next one is Beyond the Spider-Verse.
There's a lot from like there's an arc from the Spider-Man 2099 comic book where Miguel O'Hare, who's like the Irish like I loved Spider-Man 29 because he's Irish and Mexican, and I'm Irish and Mexican, so I was like, and his name's Miguel. Like, love everything about this. This is my guy. There's like a like later on, Miguel O'Hare creates like the device that can bounce in between multiverses and like find his other selves.
Yeah,
and I think like that's precedent kind of set the scene for a lot of what I think we're going to see in Doctor Strange. I didn't say that on the previous show, but like it could like stuff that would like obviously they're not going to use Spider-Man 29/9 in the Thing or like another. I know we didn't. This isn't a Doctor Strange episode, but like there's the scene where there's like this arc where do you know who Molecule Man is?
It sounds familiar. Maybe if I saw a picture of him.
So he is a big player in the original Secret Wars. Okay. So he is like stupid overpowered. Like he basically, to put it in the layman's sense, he can control molecules, but it's like that is like the very like baseline of what he can do. He can basically like restructure like everything. And he was created, I want to say, I don't remember who created him, but if you go to every multiverse, there is like, say there's 100 universes, there's 100 Robbies. This universe, you could be a woman. This universe, you could have 20/20 vision. This universe, you could be bald. Like every universe would be different. Molecule Man in every universe is the exact same, and he's the only one that is the exact same, because he is essentially a walking like reset button where I think it's a Celestial or someone basically just blows him up, and resets the universe or resets the world.
He's
So
like the nuke button. They're like, give me the key to
Correct.
molecule, man.
Correct. So every single universe, he has the same origin story, the same name, the same look, the same
What are
powers.
they, a Nexus being? Is he one of them? Or is
Oh,
that
maybe,
like
yeah.
kind of different?
I never heard of that one, but I've never heard
That's
that theory or read that
that's
book.
what they
Possibly.
say. That's what they say about like Wanda in the MCU. I think.
So that's the only. I was about to say the only other person I can think of where everything is always the same is Scarlet Witch. Like I said yesterday, Scarlet Witch gets powers. Scarlet Witch is a good guy. Scarlet Witch loses everything loyal she loves. She goes crazy. Chthon escapes. Hell breaks loose. Rinse and repeat. It's
And
like
if you're
her
like,
and
who's
Molecule Man.
Chthon, you better listen on Monday.
Yeah, the rinse and
We got
repeat.
into
It's
that.
the same thing.
Yeah. And also something we mentioned on Monday, and then they dropped a new TV spot on us. I say on the Doctor Strange episode coming out on Monday that my favorite Professor X theory is that he's the Professor X from the X-Men 90s cartoon.
I hope
Today
so.
they release a TV spot. He's in the fucking yellow floaty chair. He's in the yellow floaty chair. Yes. You don't see like a full picture. You just see his arm on the like recliner. It's clearly the yellow floaty chair. And someone tweeted me, they were so mad. Fuck you, Robbie. Do I have to mute TV spot now? It's not a spoiler if Marvel puts it out.
Yeah.
It's on TV. I mean,
It's literally like are you mad at like Monday Night Football if they put a commercial on? Like, come on. I can't control that. They put that, but you also they put confirmation. You see from the back, someone get blown away, and then they have the British Captain America shield. It's Captain Carter from the What If show.
Oh boy, brains are gonna break. This multiverse of madness. That's why you guys got to listen on Monday, because again, how many of us would have been lost without Professor Young dropping knowledge before Moon Knight? And this multiverse of madness.
It's a great episode too. People got to listen on Monday.
I hope
we
so,
usually
man.
do the Friday releases. Make sure you set your clock, set your watches to Monday, because you're going to need that going into Doctor Strange. All right. We will see you guys for the Moon Knight finale next week. Like I said, Monday, we've got the pod about Doctor Strange, and I hope everyone enjoys Doctor Strange. I will be seeing it on Monday. Not to brag, but I'll be seeing it on Monday, and I'll tweet out my non-spoiler thoughts about it.
Bob used the time stone on our asses.
There you go.